Hello and welcome to this talk. My name is Karen Lee and I'm a retired intensive care nurse and nutritionist. I've been eating a whole food plant-based diet now for 10 years and I use it to manage my own health problems as well as teach others how to transition and thrive on a super tasty, healthy vegan diet. I'm going to give you a talk about the 7 pitfalls to avoid when changing to a vegan diet. So let's get going. Well, on the surface, following a vegan diet is not difficult. There's a huge range of choice of delicious foods to eat after all. But it can throw up some obstacles and challenges, often early on in your vegan experience, but maybe still later after you've been vegan for a number of years. I've had many reasons why people decide that a vegan diet is not for them. These can be summarised in 7 common pitfalls. I'm going to run through each one and then offer my top tips on how to avoid them. And that way you can continue to enjoy and thrive on your vegan diet. So pitfall number 1 is that it's just too complicated and I don't have time. Now, if you are completely new to eating a plant-based diet, it may seem a bit overwhelming at first. So when people discover that I'm vegan, I often get asked, but what do you eat? And I usually just reply, well, loads of things like soups and pasta, then there's pizza, there's curry, there's pies, there's chilies, there's cake. Pretty much what anybody eats, but just made with plants. Like anything new, it can take time to adapt, to know what you're doing. It may seem complicated, but only until you become skilled in knowing how to cook a few favourite dishes, or to recognise the products in the shops that are okay to buy, because reading ingredients lists in tiny writing can take a long time. Now, if you live by yourself or cook for yourself, then it's pretty easy, as you just have yourself to please. But where it can become complicated or challenging is if you're not the cook. Expecting whoever is to produce a vegan gourmet dish overnight is not reasonable and can be the cause of much friction and drama. Now, if you're fortunate, they will be happy to oblige and adapt. And I've had many parents or partners come on my courses and workshops to learn about plant-based eating so that they can do just that. They are wonderful people, but they also tend to make changes themselves too, which is equally great. Now, if you're the cook of the house, then should you expect everyone else to change with you? Now, sometimes it does happen, but more often to start with, the cook ends up creating 2, sometimes 3 different meals to accommodate everyone. Now, this is definitely hard work. I can vouch for that, that's where we started in my family. And although it was hard, it was worth it. And over time, they all changed with me, and now we're a vegan family. So there are things that you can do to make life easier. First is to learn the basics, so get the support or knowledge you need to succeed with your vegan diet. And if you're not the cook, maybe it's time to be. Or go into negotiations with whoever is, explaining why you're changing. Look at easy meals that can be adapted at the last minute, like stir fries, pasta, fajitas. Agree to meat-free days so everyone can eat the same thing. Now, there's lots of online groups and organisations to interact with and societies like the Vegan Society to refer to. But do take care on your choice of Facebook group. Some are wonderful, but there are also some really unhelpful and opinionated people out there too that can just put you off. Looking for groups which offer challenges or plans to get you going are also a good idea. Like the Plant-Based Health Professional 21-Day Challenge is a great one to go for. And if you've been vegan for a while and maybe lost your mojo or finding it a bit overwhelming, these plans can be really helpful. Or try a cooking course if you're stuck in a rut eating the same thing, because boring is not necessary these days. Planning is important to know what you're going to do each week, particularly during the week when time is short. Now, it doesn't have to be set in stone because spontaneity is a wonderful thing, but it's a really helpful idea to know, even if it's just in your head, what you're going to do. And being prepared is also useful. So you could bulk cook at the weekend or prepare ingredients the weekend or even the day before, things that are going to save you time the next day. And if this all seems a bit like hard work, once you get used to it, it just becomes second nature and just makes life much easier. So, pitfall number 2 is it's just too expensive. Now, have you noticed that foods with vegan in the title carry a premium price? For example, this is a pot of Ben & Jerry's chocolate fudge brownie ice cream, and then this is the vegan version. Now, this may only be 50p more, but it's still more, and actually I've seen it a lot more expensive than that. Then this is a Chicago Town Takeaway pizza, pepperoni one, and then this is the vegan version, which carries an extra £1.25 tag. So meat and dairy are expensive, but some of the processed vegan products can carry an even heftier price tag. And of course, new products do tend to be more expensive. And they have a premium partly because of the costs of development, smaller production, but also because they're new and it pushes demand. You know, if something's new and shiny, then more people are going to want to try it out. But there are lots of products that are vegan without vegan in the title, which are super cheap. They also tend to be the healthier ones as well. So seasonal fruits and vegetables, grains, beans and legumes are all cheaper. Now, nuts and seeds can have a higher price tag, but they do tend to be eaten in smaller amounts. So all of the new vegan products and fake meats are enticing, but will strain your pocket. So what to do? Well, it's going back to the basics again. Learning how to make a range of easy and cheap recipes made with whole foods can actually cost very little. Really try to minimise the amount of these expensive fake meats and processed products, because not only will it be good for your pocket, but it will also be better for your health as well. And I've already mentioned it, try and get into the practice of bulk cooking. Now, it doesn't have to be one major cook-up, but it could be that if you're making a chilli, for an example, that you make double or even quadruple the amount and then have containers to freeze them so that you've got things to go back to. Just remember to put a label on them, because otherwise it can become a little bit of dinner roulette and you end up having something sweet instead of savoury when you want it. And eat seasonal as well. It's also cheaper because there's an abundance of foods available. Now, this really can be possible. So my son, when he left home to go to college, this is when he actually finally went vegan, when he started to realise quite how expensive food could be. And he devised or started making huge batches of curries and chilies, and then that would keep him going through the week. And he realised that he really could spend a very small amount of money on quite a lot of food. So again, it's just knowing how to do it and getting into the routine of it as well. And it can make a huge difference, so that expensiveness no longer needs to be an excuse. So, pitfall number 3, and this one for some people can be a big problem, is that it's made me tired and had no energy. This story about Jaden Smith hit the headlines a couple of years ago when he went vegan, and it suddenly looks like he didn't follow a healthy vegan diet because he lost an enormous amount of weight and just doesn't look particularly healthy. And I'm really glad that his parents intervened because it looks like he needed it at that time. Sadly, these stories also feed into the narrative that a vegan diet is not a healthy diet, but it certainly can be, and it's backed by many organisations, including the British Dietetic Association, who say that a well-planned plant-based diet can support healthy living at every age and life stage, include a wide range of healthy whole foods to ensure your diet is balanced and sustainable. So why might you feel tired and have no energy if it's such a good way to eat? Well, first question is are you actually eating enough? So a diet that's high in animal and processed foods are also high in calories. Plant-based foods tend to be less energy dense, and especially the unrefined whole fruits, vegetables, beans, grains and legumes. Many people do turn to plant-based eating to lose weight or to enjoy the benefit of weight loss, but you still need to make sure that you're eating enough calories, which is good news because it actually means you can eat more of it, more of this lovely nutritious food. And the nutrients that are found in whole plant foods is actually what fills people with energy and vitality. So if you think you're eating enough, what could be the cause of your lethargy? So are you eating real or processed junk? So ultra-processed and vegan junk food is still ultra-processed and vegan and junk food. And if you live on a diet of chips, cake and pizza, you will not thrive because you're not giving your body this range of nutrients that it needs. Refined sugars can lead to sugar lows and sluggishness, and toxic fats and added chemicals can increase stress within the body and make it work harder, which can just lead you to feeling a bit rubbish. So whole foods give you a slow release of energy as they're wrapped up in complex fibre, and this keeps it going for longer. And whole foods like beans, legumes and whole grains provide you with healthy forms of protein, which is the nutrient that Will Smith was really worried about with Jaden. And they have plenty to keep your body functioning well and maintaining strength and to thrive. Now, variety is an issue as well. So if you're just eating the same thing every day, you could well be missing out on essential nutrients. So it is important to just eat different foods during the day. Now, B12 is a potential issue. Are you getting enough? So anyone can suffer with low B12, no matter what type of diet that they eat. There's lots of different reasons why people could be low in this. And then in the UK, it's thought that about 6% of the population is deficient or severely deficient. And they can't all be vegans, as currently a vegan only makes up just over 1% of the population. So, but it is still important to make sure that you're getting a good amounts of B12 because it's involved with a healthy nerve system and healthy blood cells. And if you are severely low, it can lead to a type of anemia. And so the other main nutrient that potentially could be connected to tiredness and lack of energy is iron. So non-heme iron is found in plants and it's in plentiful amounts as well, but it's just not quite as well absorbed as heme iron, the type of iron that you find in animal products. And statistical research shows that if you're vegan or vegetarian, you're no more likely to be anemic than a meat eater. But you do still need to make sure that you're having lots of different sources of iron in your food and enabling yourself to absorb that iron. So foods that have got good amount of iron in them including greens, beans and legumes and seeds. So again, it's coming back to variety, which is important. So my top tips for you to maximise your energy, first of all, is to minimise the junk food because that really does zap your energy and make your body work much harder. So you can eat a large amount or a plethora of fruits, vegetables, whole grains, beans, legumes, nuts and seeds to give you this range of nutrients that you need. And remember that there's less calories, so you can eat more. Doesn't have to be a restrictive way. There's a lot of people kind of think that it's just, you're not going to treat yourself, but it doesn't have to be like that. So make sure that you're giving yourself satisfaction with the food that you eat. And variety really is key to get this range of nutrients that your body requires. Now B12, you can get this in fortified foods, so you can see this in dairy-free milks, in things like nutritional yeast, or if you like Marmite, there's B12 in that. Or you can take a supplement that's suitable for vegans, but it is really important to make sure that you are getting enough in your diet every day. With regards to iron, there are ways to help you absorb iron better. So vitamin C is really important. So when you're having your greens or your beans, then you can have it with other foods with vitamin C in, like tomatoes or fruit, but you could add a squeeze of lemon juice or even vinegar and acetic acid, so in dressings on vegetables and salads. That will help you absorb them. But also try to avoid drinking tea and coffee whilst you're actually eating, because the tannins in those can also prevent the iron from being absorbed. But also, if you eat a rainbow every day throughout the day, these fresh fruits and vegetables, the colourful ones, contain good amounts of vitamin C, so you don't really need to think about it. But also the beta-carotenes, which is a type of phytonutrient that's found in particularly red and yellow foods, they are also thought to help iron absorption. So just comes back to variety once more. Eating a range of foods will actually help you benefit. And do try to focus on, at a minimum, getting your 5 a day of fresh fruit and vegetables, but really you should be aiming for 10 a day to help you feel wonderful and fabulous. So pitfall number 4 is, it's not good for my gut, I have too much wind. Now, wind or flatulence, it's normal. It's produced by the bacteria in the large intestine, and they produce gas as they digest the complex fibre that's bound up in whole foods. Now, a large amount of wind, however, is not ideal because it can be uncomfortable, embarrassing, and not very sociable. So the plant-based diet is really good for gut health, as the fibre helps to remove toxins, care for the gut lining, as well as the microbiome. And the microbiome is a group of bacteria that lives in your colon, which is in your large intestine. And so helping your microbiome to thrive is actually key to overall health. And research is showing up more and more evidence about how we have this symbiotic relationship with our microbiome. So if we look after it, and it will look after us. But a sudden change to a plant-based diet can be a bit of a shock to the system, and especially if your bacteria are not particularly healthy. So it can take time for the bacteria to adapt, especially if you have a lot of bad bacteria rather than friendly ones. So by that I mean if you've been eating a lot of junk food, or you've had a high animal diet and a low fibre diet up to this point, it's lots of sugar, things like that. It really can help the bad bacteria to thrive and to create inflammation within your gut. So it can take time for this to heal and to be better. So what can you do about it? So I think one of the key things to remember with this is that everybody is different, and including everybody's microbiome. And this is people in the same family, even identical twins can have a different, or will have a different microbiome. So it's about changing slowly, well, changing at a speed that works for you, and really being mindful about how you are responding to particular foods. So try not to have too much insoluble fibre to start off with, and also try to avoid sugar, because sugary foods will contribute towards bloating and gas, because this particularly if you've got a lot of bad bacteria in there. Now, fruit is also obviously got sugar in it. It's also got lots of other things which is good for us as well. But so try to eat sugary foods, or try to eat fruit either first thing in the day or on an empty stomach. Otherwise, those sugars can start to ferment if they have a heavy meal in front of them blocking the way. Take care with beans, because the complex fibre in this can be a little bit fruity for some people. And by taking care, I mean start with just a small amount, even a tablespoon if needed, because if you just suddenly start eating lots and lots of beans, it can lead to a stomach upset or to cramps if you're just not ready for it. Some people have no problem, other people have a big problem. So it really is coming down to this individualized approach. Gradually build it up. And the other thing with beans is the fact that soaking and sprouting can sometimes help improve the digestibility. There are things that you can add to your food, so things like ginger and cumin can actually help settle your stomach a little bit if it's responding a bit violently to some of the fibres that you're eating. But also make sure that you are drinking enough water, because when you're having more fibre, it can also absorb more water as well. And keeping hydrated is key to gut health as well as to whole body health. And if you think you've got a problem, or this is an ongoing problem that's really very painful and causing you a lot of issues, then do seek help and advice. If you look at plant-based health professionals, there's a number of different nutritionists and doctors who you can contact. Okay, so pitfall number 5 is that I think it was just a fad. I don't think it's worth it. Now, I'm sure we've all done it, thrown ourselves into something new, only to find out after a while it's not quite as fun or as easy as it seemed at first. And interest wanes and you soon forget about it, or you hit a barrier, decide that you've failed and stop, but it still makes you feel really guilty. Now, I know I've done this many times with different things, but a vegan diet is not a fad and it's worth it, but you have to know why you're doing it. What are the fundamental reasons for transforming your lifestyle in this way? Because when the going gets tough, you can turn to your why and remind yourself what is your purpose or goal. Now, everyone has a different why, but for the main reasons for going vegan are for health, and evidence shows that a whole food plant-based diet really is a really highly effective and positive way of transforming chronic health problems. Now that's not just managing it, that's not just preventing it, but it also, you can reverse conditions which are thought to be pretty much unreversible. So things like diabetes and heart disease and high blood pressure. You can bring autoimmune conditions under control. It really is incredibly effective. An environment is also a key reason why people choose to follow a vegan diet, because we're in a climate crisis. Action needs to be taken, and by changing to a plant-based diet can actually be the most direct action that you can take as an individual to reduce your impact on the use of the resources in the world. And then, of course, there's the ethical reasons, there's the animals. A lot of people choose veganism because they don't want to be causing harm to our fellow beings on this planet. They're all really, really strong reasons. And often people start with just one, but actually you end up, the more you learn about this, and as time goes by, all of these reasons can become important. Because that's just how important being vegan is. It affects everything around us. So what can you do about this? How can you know that what you're doing is really worth it? So I think the key thing here really is to identify your why. Know why you are doing this. Take ownership. It's not just knowing why, but really take ownership of it. And by that I mean, do your research, really know and understand why and how your actions can improve your own health and the health and well-being of the world around you as well. So be prepared to answer questions from others, because they will ask you, and be able to hold your own in a discussion without losing the plot. You don't have to be an expert, but having some basic knowledge really does make a difference. Again, find some help, find your tribe, a group to feel part of. And there's lots and lots out there, so just have a look around and find one that's right for you. There's lots of online communities and organisations that you can find support and information, and Viva and the Vegan Society are both really good places to start. And if it's a specific health problem, then please do have a look at the Plant-Based Health Professionals website, because they've got lots of information and fact sheets on there which are available to access for free. So the next one is pitfall number 6, is it was just so boring. So if you pick up any food magazine now, and you'll no doubt find an article about plant-based food, whether it's a new product or an eye-catching recipe. There's so much choice, variety and innovation happening right now. And even many top chefs are choosing to go down the plant-based route and producing amazing dishes that are now being recognised in the mainstream. Only a couple of weeks ago, a vegan restaurant in France, of all places, has been awarded a Michelin star, and it really shows just how far vegan dining has come. Now, of course, most of us are not going to be going to fine dining restaurants all the time, but that doesn't mean that the food has to be dull in inspiration. So boredom can come with lack of variety, can come with routine, and lack of engagement with others, with lack of experimentation as well. And also, boredom is a mindset. So, as I've already said, following a vegan diet isn't, you don't have to be austere and a dull way of life. It can be really exciting and engaging. So my top tips for you is really unleash your creativity, and it really doesn't have to be complex. So one of the things I love about eating a whole food plant-based diet is that it allows me to be creative. And I love grabbing a selection of ingredients and seeing what it turns out to be. Now people say to me, it's okay for you, you're a good cook. My family at times may say differently, and I actually failed cookery at school, which is pretty hard to do. But for me, cooking is like a little bit of magic. And once you've mastered the basics, really get out there and start unleashing your creative spirit using different colours, textures and flavours. And have fun with it. It really is enjoyable. If you don't know where to start, then have a look at some of the vegan magazines, have a look at there's loads of blogs, there's YouTube channels. Try a cooking class. You can get live cooking demos and social media, or you can, there's lots of actual in-person, currently online cooking classes. This is a lovely lady who came to one of my classes before Christmas. We were getting ready for the main dish on Christmas Day, and she just really enjoyed it. There really is so much out there that once you've opened your mind to the possibilities, it's actually really quite hard to be bored. You just need to find that connection and find out what works for you. Now finally, we've come to pitfall number 7, and this is a really big one. The amount of times people say that, but I read that. So there are many conflicting and contradictory stories on the news that it is hard to know what is real and what is not. The mainline and on-stream media carry sensational headlines that are often based on half-truths at best. So every day there seems to be a new story about how celebrities shun their vegan diet, or how eating animal products is good for you. So this recent advert is encouraging people to eat balanced, focusing on meat. This balance is focusing on meat. It's a really good example. This was screened during January to counterbalance the impact of Veganuary. So doubt and confusion stop people from making change, and it's a well-known technique used by large corporations. So this is in advertising, but also in the medical world as well. The research can be skewed, and it is on a regular basis, because you can make numbers tell you whatever it is that you want to see. And research, for example, that shows that eating eggs is good for you, if you look at it, it's no doubt been backed by the egg industry. Now, another example of this is in 2019, the Annals of Internal Medicine published a whole feature on research that showed it was okay to continue eating meat. Now, this is an esteemed journal and it carried great weight. But when you actually looked into it in more details, the studies were cherry-picked specifically, and they'd ignored huge studies because they were not randomized controlled ones, which is, when it comes to food, practically impossible to do. And so hopefully most of that's been debunked, but once it's out there, this is like an earworm, and it gets into people's minds. And mainstream media as well. I mean, like this article on the BBC, it engenders fear and doubt, and particularly in parents. So whether or not that's you're a parent with a young child and you want them to be vegan, or you have a child who chooses to become vegan, and you see these stories and you think, oh no, this is going to ruin their lives. And the food industry really has a huge influence on the media as well as the government, because there's a lot at stake for them, both the dairy and the meat industry as well as the processed food industry. And they're threatened by this increase in plant-based eating and the rise of veganism. So what do you do? So one thing is to find reliable and authentic sources of information, especially when it comes to your health. So trusted organisations like Plant-Based Health Professionals in the UK, or the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine in the US, they're really great places to start. If you see a headline, check out the source for the article, and then check that article out. Who sponsored it? Ask questions. Does the article you read actually give a clear representation of the research? Now, sometimes the research does throw up surprises, which does need attending to. And like the recent results from the Oxford EPIC study are a good example of this. Now, previously it's shown that vegans have got less heart disease, less diabetes, less high blood pressure, all of these things, which is great news. But it's also thrown out some other questions. So things like it seems to show there's an increase in hemorrhagic strokes, and also recently an increase in risk of hip fractures. Now, it could be easy to dismiss this, but actually it is important to know why this is so that changes can make, because it is important to be a healthy vegan. So asking these questions and actually, understanding more of what's being said is really important. I'd encourage you to be inquisitive, but also really to stay open-minded. And the key thing really is, don't always believe everything you read in the news, certainly not without checking the real story behind the headline. So that is it. These are my top tips to avoid the 7 common pitfalls when going vegan. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope that you can take up these top tips to help you to thrive and to make sure that you're benefiting yourself and the world around you. And if you've got any questions, please feel free to contact me.